Okay, speaking of civilians, Mr. Dunford, are you on?
I am, Stefan. How are you?
Excellent. We are well. Always happy to have somebody else take questions. So, Michael, you're joining us from Nairobi. And a quick reminder that you are the World Food Programme's Regional Director for East Africa. And looking forward to your update on the drought in the Horn of Africa.
Thanks very much. And thanks very much for the opportunity to brief the press corps. I really want to highlight this evening just the severity of the drought that we are facing. The drought has already had 3 failed rainy seasons, and we are approaching the 4th. In fact, we are now halfway through it. Originally, the estimates of the number of people affected at the beginning of this year was between 13 and 14 million. We now estimate this has increased to 15 to 16 million, and if the rains fail, or if they are below average, then this number could increase to 20 million. So we have a very real risk of famine. The Integrated Food Security Phase Cluster has just announced its latest results, and it indicates that almost 6 million people in Somalia are now affected, that there is a real risk of famine. 1.4 million are already in emergency conditions, and there are another 81,000 people who are considered to be in IPC 5, which is a catastrophic or famine-like condition. So this is happening at a time when the level of food insecurity across the region has increased dramatically. We are now estimating that 81 million people across Eastern Africa and the Horn are food insecure. This is a 60% increase since June 2021. What's causing it? It's a combination of ongoing conflicts, and I've spoken to you previously about Tigray. It's the climate effect, it's the droughts, and also the flooding. We're also now seeing the macroeconomic impacts of COVID. Now we're seeing a spike in the cost. Some of this is related to Ukraine, as you know. Others are due to other factors such as rising fuel prices. So when I look particularly at the situation as it relates to the drought, the numbers are really very alarming. In Ethiopia, there are 7 million people who have affected. In Somalia, we estimate, as I mentioned, between 5 and 6 million, and in Kenya, 3.5 million. In fact, we even now are getting reports of drought in Djibouti. The government announced previously, and we're seeing significant numbers, up to 55% of the rural population affected by this drought. The impact of the war in Ukraine is certainly being felt, particularly with regards the impact it's having on prices and the cost of living. We estimate that wheat imports into the region account for 84% of all the wheat consumed. And as you know, Russia, Ukraine are huge contributors to these imports. We've seen an increase in the average food basket by 23% and across the region. And in some of the countries, Ethiopia, it's 66%, and in Somalia, it's 36%. We're also very concerned about the implications of the conflict in Ukraine as it relates to the availability and importation of fertilizer. 2 countries, Ethiopia and Sudan, make up, rely on up to 90% of all their imports from these 2 countries. So we're expecting that the deterioration of the food security situation will continue. And as a result, we're really asking for the international community to step up and make funding available. As yet, we are not seeing the levels of funding required. WFP launched an appeal in January. We were asking over a 6-month period for $327 million. We've only received 64 million. That's about 20% of the overall requirement. As I stand here today, the next 6-month outlook, we're requiring up to $473 million. And the question really is, where is this money going to come from? Because without it, the World Food Programme and other humanitarian actors are not going to be able to respond to the levels required, and people are going to die. It's as simple as that. As I said, there is a real identified risk of famine if these rains fail, and if we do not have all of the factors required to be able to respond properly. So the message that I really want to send this evening is that time is running out. Funding is required. We have the capacity to respond only if we have the levels of funding required. And it's forcing us to make very tough choices already. We're effectively taking from the hungry to feed the starving. And at this time, we cannot forget about Eastern Africa and the populations affected by this drought. Thanks very much, Stefan.
Thank you very much. Stefano?
Thank you for your briefing. My question is, do you think that the fact that you received only 20% and you lack what you're looking for now is the crisis in Ukraine has something to do with it? I mean, all the attention is there, and how you deal with that?
Yeah, there's no doubt that Ukraine is sucking up a lot of the attention at the moment, a lot of the oxygen, and a lot of the funding. I think Stefan mentioned at the beginning of his presentation, just the levels of funding that are being made available, rightfully, to that operation. But there is a finite amount of funding available, and unfortunately, we're not getting the levels of support required in Eastern Africa at this stage, and particularly in relation to this drought response.
Thank you. James Bays, Al Jazeera.
The Security Council happens to be, or members of the Security Council happen to be having an ARIA meeting about food insecurity in just an hour or so's time, just over an hour's time. Just be very clear, what's your message to the Security Council and to the wider membership of the General Assembly right now?
The message is clear, is that the situation across the region is deteriorating very quickly. We need the conflicts to end. We need investments in addressing climate change. We need funding packages and support to offset the macroeconomic impact of COVID. And we need to take all steps necessary to try and make the commodities and the other fuel items available at affordable prices. We are in a very serious situation, and my fear is that we are accelerating to something even worse.
Thank you. Jen Peltz, Associated Press.
Thank you for the briefing. I noticed your remark earlier about taking from the hungry to feed the starving. Can you get a little more specific?
Well, because we don't have the levels of funding that we require, we're making very difficult choices as to who we are going to target, who are we going to support, and to what extent are we able to give what they require. So when we first developed our plan, we wanted to support a much broader population, but because of the levels of funding, we're really having to feed the most vulnerable, those who are now in IPC levels 4 and 5, and many who are deserving simply are going without. Alternatively, we are having to downsize some of the nutrition programs, the preventative programs that are targeting the most vulnerable children, the under 5s, the pregnant lactating women, because we need to now move very much towards life-saving activities and ensure that minimum requirements are given to the most vulnerable.
Great, Michael, thank you very much. I think no more questions. We appreciate these important periodic updates, and we hope to hear back from you soon.
Very good. Thanks very much this evening.
Thank you.